Power, betrayal and the influence of a godlike figure. Dishonored weaves a tale that's as complex as it's compelling. But to truly understand this world, we must start at the very beginning. My name is Tim, and in this video we'll unravel the full timeline of Dishonored, exploring the myths, history and conflicts that shaped the Isles. Before diving in the timeline, it's important to understand how the time system of Dishonored works. There are 13 months in a year, each consisting of 28 days, totaling 346 days a year. Each month has their own name, like month of earth, harvest or ice. At an unknown time, a young boy is sacrificed in the void by the Avisioned with a twin-bladed knife. This sacrificed boy would go on to become the outsider. The calendar used in Dishonored starts at 0, marking the end of the Great Burning. The Great Burning was a horrific period on the Isles. A nihilistic cult waged a campaign to destroy the established cultures of the Isles, going from city to city, burning and destroying everything in their way. It is speculated that several key members of this cult were marked by the outsider. The end of the Great Burning marks the beginning of the current calendar system. Before going any further, it might be wise to take a closer look at the Isle. To better understand the events that I'm going to talk about, I will first give a brief summary of each island as they are seen in the games and their history. The Pandyssian continent, also known as the Far Continent, is the largest landmass in the world of Dishonored. It is also one of the most mysterious places, rumored to be populated by civilizations far more primitive than that of the Isles. The Abbey believes these people to be subhuman, engaging in heretical rituals. Most of the continent is unexplored, featuring strange wildlife and plants. It is also rumored that the rats that carried the plague seen in Dishonored originate from this continent. Expeditions to the continent are rare and expensive, largely due to its vast distance from the Isles. Crystal was once home to an ancient civilization that worshipped the outsider using inscribed whalebones as runes with his mark. The ruins of the civilization were only discovered in the early 1800s, but the civilization thrived in the time period from 700 to 800. The continent was mainly ruled by the Duchess, who also partly controlled Serkonos. It would also be the founding place of the state religion of the Abbey of the Everyman, battling against the outsider. The discovery of whale oil would push Crystal and Dunwall, its capital, to become the heart of the industrial development and the main powerhouse of the Isles. Morley is a land known for its shaky relationship with Crystal, resisting many of the ideas and influences coming from Dunwall. Throughout the years they waged wars against Crystal, but Morley lost most of them. As a result, famine became a major problem, leading many of its inhabitants to migrate to Kanaka in Serkonos. The island is ruled by a king and a queen, who share the same amount of authority to maintain a delicate balance of power. Despite the dreary climate, the people of Morley are spirited and creative, producing renowned artists, philosophers and musicians. According to legend, Morley's cultural emphasis on learning and the arts originate from a bargain made with the Coven of Witches, who once controlled the land where Wyrmwood was built. The Witches of Wyrmwood agreed to let the Morleyan people have the land on the condition that they continued to create and learn. Tivia is known for its cold and hostile ecosystems. The island is ruled by the High Judges, the three most senior members of a 16-member governing council, called the Presidium. Each member represents a district of Tivia. The continent was originally ruled by princes, one of which achieved an almost mythological status. This prince was named Kalisar and was a warrior poet. He not only defeated all of Tivia's other princes, but is claimed to conquer Crystal and almost united the Isles long before the founding of the Empire of the Isles. Tivia is known for supporting Crystal, and in return has gotten a great degree of autonomy. Tivian culture mixes survivalism and refinement. Its inhabitants are known for their culinary arts, in particular Tivian foods. These foods are exported to all of the Isles. Serkonos is the southernmost isle in the Empire. Its capital city, Kanaka, is where most of the second game takes place, when the Duchess of Serkonos wants to take over Dunwall. The cities of Serkonos were never united like the cities of the other Isles. Serkonos was was constantly bombarded by pirates and marauders, mainly from Bristol. One day, a king managed to rise to power and rallied Sagunto and Culero to his kingdom, while Bastillion became a port of Bristol. The capital, Kanaka, is known for its silver industry, even leading to several silver ages, as these periods were very prosperous to Kanaka. The island has more tropical weather patterns and is a favorite vacation destination for the other isles. The War of the Four Crowns was a conflict between the four isles that started somewhere in the early 1600s and shaped much of the relationships between the isles. The conflict had several interests, mainly coming from Bristol. Bristol was the strongest continent, and its ruler, Finlay Morgengaard, had a vision for the isles to be united under one ruling force. Due to the legend of Prince Caesar, the Tivian people supported allying with Bristol and wanted to join a united empire. On the southern part of the isles, the Saxonian king was fighting hard against the forces of Bristol. That was until the Duchess and Duke of Aventa and a group of nobles and merchants bribed the guards of the Saxonian king into joining them to prevent further bloodshed. This was successful, and after Bastillion changed sides, the rest of Saconos soon fell. Morley was last to give in after fiercely fighting for their independence, setting up the tumultuous relationship with Bristol. The end of the war unified the isles under the empire of the isle, and soon after the parliament was formed in Donwell, and Finlay Morgengaard was coronated as the first emperor of the isles. In the following years, power shifted hands between many emperors and empresses. It was also during this period that the rail industry started to gear up and become one of the main power sources for the isles. In the year 1701, John Clavering, an overseer, began the construction of the Abbey as a building to show the people of Donwell that the religion called the Abbey of the Everyman existed. The true origin of this religion is unknown, but John made it prominent and gave the religion a symbol. This religion is quite unique, as it has no stated deity and opposes worship in the traditional sense. Instead, the religion follows a strict set of strictures, called the Seven Strictures, which dictate how the members of the Abbey should conduct themselves. Citizens are encouraged to follow these strictures and adhere to the religion, especially towards the High Overseer, who holds the highest position. The Abbey opposed magic and witchcraft and views the outsider as one of their greatest enemies. They practice burning heretics and witches all throughout the history of the Isles. In 1705, the Abbey started a rectification war to unite the religions of Bristol. There are numerous battles occurring all across Bristol between followers of the outsiders and other religions against the Abbey. The final battle occurred at Whitecliff, fittingly named the Siege of Whitecliff. The Abbey came out victorious, and soon after, in 1711, the Abbey is named state religion of the empire. Around 1765, Vera Dubgoyle is born, also known as Granny Rags. She marries Lord Preston Moray in 1790 and since then was named Vera Moray. Vera was a wealthy aristocrat living in the top parts of society. In the later years of the 1700s, we see the births of some of the main characters in the series: Anton Sokolov, Daud, and Corvo Artano. In 1801, the ESV Richgate was burnt in the Isle of Morley, which might have been the beginning of a violent uprising of the Kingdom of Morley against the rule of the empire. The reason behind the war was the harsh exploitation of the Morleyan working class by the wealthy upper class of Dunwall. The war was largely fought on sea, with privateers raiding and fighting on both sides. Bristol's navy was way more powerful than that of Morley, but Morley took a more guerrilla warfare type tactic by infiltrating the sewer system of Dunwall. By doing this, they successfully assassinated then Empress Larissa Olaski. The conflict, however, ended swiftly in 1802 thanks to Bristol's superior navy. This event would also mark the relationship between Morley and Bristol. In the following years, many of Morley inhabitants immigrated to Kanaka, as the war left their kingdom in famine and poverty. Kanaka had a promising second silver age, which allowed these people to find jobs and pay for food. In the early 1800s, three more prominent characters were born: Jessamine Caldwin, Delilah Copperspoon, and Billy Lurk. Around 1810, Vera and her husband Preston Moray ventured to the Pandyssian continent. Vera, taking great interest in the practices of the continent's people, came into contact with the outsider, and during her journey she received the outsider's mark. As a result of meeting the outsider and succumbing to a Pandyssian disease, Vera fell into insanity. In 1814, she killed her husband and subsequently starts living in the streets, becoming known as Granny Rag. It is also during this time that Corvo is starting to be present in the story, heading to Dunwall in 1816 and becoming the royal protector in 1817. In 1822, Sokolov is named royal physician, and together with the industrialization of whale oil, the empire experiences an economic boom. Sokolov invents arc pylons, walls of light and tall boys, and other inventors make the first railways and upgraded pistols, all thanks to the whale oil industry. In the coming years, the plague that haunts Dunwall during Dishonored starts spreading, and the events of Dishonored unfold. It's 1837 and Dishonored opens with an impactful moment in the history of the Isles. The assassin and merchant Daud kills Jessamine Caldwin, Empress of the Isles and lover of Corvo Atano. He also abducts Emily Caldwin, and Corvo gets blamed for the murder and is imprisoned. Corvo, however, escapes and is marked by the outsider. Meanwhile, Daud is haunted by visions and starts searching for a woman named Delilah. Delilah meanwhile starts corrupting Billy Lurk, who has joined the Whalers and became a close member of Daud's gang. Corvo joins the Loyalists, a group who stayed loyal to the Caldwin family and opposes the new emperor Hiram Burroughs. Hiram became spy master some years ago and was a master of espionage and sniffing out traitors of the empire. He grew distressed by the lack of concern on Jessamine's side and also grew a compulsive need to have everything in order, which led him to release the Red Plague onto Dunwall to eliminate the poor. Following Corvo, he is entangled in a power-hungry political game, following orders of the Loyalists who want to put Emily back into power but are also fighting for that same power with each other. Corvo does as they wish, bringing back Emily and eventually eliminating the Lord Regent himself. The Loyalists, however, start scrambling for power as they all want a piece of the pie. Corvo eliminates the Loyalists and puts Emily back into power with him by her side. Meanwhile, Daud is following his visions and keeps hearing the name Delilah. Daud, also wrecked with guilt for killing Jessamine Caldwin, starts his search for Delilah. After finding out that Delilah is a painter, a witch and the leader of the Brickmore Witches, he returns home, finding it flooded by overseers. He kills them, but is then backstabbed by his close ally Billy Lurk, who has now sided with Delilah and views Daud's regret on the murder of Jessamine as a weakness and wants to take his place. They fight it out, but they both walk away alive. Daud discovers the location of Delilah at the Brightmoor Manor and heads to it, discovering her plan to replace her mind with that of Emily Caldwin, effectively becoming Empress of the Isles. Daud stops her plans and seals her off in a painting. Daud has now rescued the girl he once abducted. In 1838, Sokolov and Piero found a cure to the Red Plague, putting an end to the crisis. In the coming years, Emily starts to grow up and become a rightful Empress of the Isles. She also learns a great deal in combat from her father Corvo. The Wyrmwood Deceit takes place 12 years after the Red Plague. Corvo, now both royal protector and spy master, begins training a promising city watch officer, Marfa Coffings, while contemplating his age and legacy. When the City Watch intercepts a contraband shipment tied to the Roaring Boys, a splinter faction of the Headers, Corvo discovers a mysterious boy who resembles his long-lost sister Beatrice. The boy escapes, leaving behind a locket with her portrait, while the port becomes a battleground between the City Watch and the gang. Unbeknownst to Corvo, a mysterious woman and her servant observe the chaos from an isolated manner, hinting at their influence in the events. As Corvo and Marfa split up to track the boy, Corvo is ambushed at the Barrington Ironworks by a Broken Tom, a slave trader using void-enhanced technology, leaving him gravely wounded. Rescued by the boy, Corvo learns that the child, Milo, is his nephew, born of his sister and used as leverage by unknown forces. Meanwhile, Marfa's investigation uncovers clues about the Roaring Boys' plans to arm Dunwall's gangs, and the involvement of witches in the chaos. After interrogating gang members, she is ambushed near Wyrmwood, but is saved by the servant of the mysterious woman, only to wake up as a prisoner in the manor. Corvo, pursuing a lead with Milo, confronts Broken Tom aboard a whaling ship. Choosing to fight without his mask or powers, he kills Tom, only to find Milo's existence disappearing. At the manor, the mysterious woman, a follower of Delilah Copperspoon, reveals that Milo was created from her painting as a deception to distract or kill Corvo. Marfa destroys the manor in a desperate act, destroying Milo's painting and causing him to disappear from Corvo's grasp. As the explosion engulfs the room, time stops and Billy Lurk appears, saving Marfa in the nick of time. In 1851, Zhukov, a former Tivian hero turned prisoner, escapes from a labor camp after acquiring a void-taught artifact, and he sets out to reshape the reality and exact revenge on the High Judges of Tivia. Arriving in Dunwall, Zhukov recruits former raiders, offering them void powers and promising to restore their gang's glory. Meanwhile, Emily Kaldwin, now Empress and secretly trained by her father Corvo Atano, begins sneaking out at night and inadvertently encounters Zhukov and his gang. Recognizing their supernatural abilities, Corvo grows concerned and quietly investigates. Zhukov's ultimate goal is to craft corroded bone charms, using the remains of the Brickmore witches, granting him the power to alter history. He orchestrates an attack on the Boyle Masquerade Ball, using the chaos to obtain a massive Leviathan bone needed for his final ritual. During the attack, Zhukov unmasks Emily before the stunned guests, destabilizing the Empire's political landscape. After completing his ritual, Zhukov crafts a black mirror, a void artifact that allows him to manipulate time and space to rewrite history. In a climactic confrontation at Zhukov's slaughterhouse, Emily and Corvo face his overwhelming power as he uses the mirror to show visions of alternate realities, including a future where Emily becomes a tyrant. Despite the mirror's destructive power, Emily destroys the artifact with Corvo's help. Zhukov, mortally wounded, falls into the molten material, seemingly perishing along with his creation. Emily recovers under Corvo's care, emerging stronger and more determined to rule. She adopts a new covert disguise, inspired by the masquerade, balancing her duties as Empress with the lessons from her harrowing journey. It's 1852, and under Emily Kaldwin's reign, the Red Plague has become a distant memory. Peace seems to have returned to the Isles, though unrest still simmers in the shadows. Emily herself struggles with restlessness, often sneaking out of the palace to escape the monotony of ruling. Her dissatisfaction is interrupted when Duke Luke Abel of Serkonos visits Dunwall, bringing with him Delilah Copperspoon, who claims to be a long-lost sister of Jessamine Kaldwin and the rightful heir to the throne. The peaceful ceremony is shattered when Delilah uses powerful void magic to petrify Corvo Atano, leaving Emily to flee the palace. She escapes aboard a ship captained by Billy Lurk, now living under the alias Megan Foster, who claims to be an ally and a friend of Anton Sokolov. Emily is soon visited by the outsider, who offers her his mark, giving her the tools to fight back. With Billy's help, Emily heads to Kanaka, Duke Abel's stronghold, to dismantle Delilah's network and uncover her plans. Meanwhile, Daud begins his own quest, haunted by visions of the void and whispers of the twin-bladed knife, an ancient artifact capable of killing the outsider. Daud returns to Dunwall during the chaos of Delilah's coup. He briefly witnesses Emily fleeing the palace, but chooses not to intervene, focusing on his mission. His search takes him to a Physic village, where he arranges passage to Porterville, chasing the artifact's trail. In Kanaka, Emily infiltrates Jindo's clockwork mansion, rescuing Sokolov and erasing the inventor's memory. This victory strengthens Emily's resolve, and with Sokolov back, she systematically takes down Delilah's allies. She defeats Brenna Ashworth, the witch commanding the Royal Conservatory, and replaces Duke Abel with a kinder, more just look-alike. As Emily grows into her role as a leader, her journey transforms her from a determined ruler into one who understands the true weight of her decisions. Daud's path also leads to Kanaka, where he faces witches tied to Delilah, trying to capture him. He encounters a time-traveling Billy Lurk, who attempts to alter his faith, but despite her intervention, Daud retrieves the twin-bladed knife. His mission, however, leaves him gravely ill, and he is ultimately captured by witches and trapped in a mental labyrinth. His final moments of the story place him in a cage at the Albarca Baths, determined to kill the outsider. Emily's journey culminates in a final confrontation at Dunwall Tower, transformed into a surreal, void-corrupted fortress under Delilah's control. Delilah reveals her plan to anchor herself permanently to reality through a void-like painting, ensuring her eternal rule. Emily defeats her, trapping her once again within a painting, neutralizing the threat and reclaiming her throne. With Corvo restored, Emily takes her place as Empress, leading the Isles into a new era, shaped by the lessons she has learned. Meanwhile, Billy reflects on her betrayal of Daud in favor of Delilah. Helping Emily has given her a sense of redemption, but her guilt lingers. Determined to find out and make amends, Billy sets out on a journey that will lead her taking the center stage in Death of the Outsider. In 1852, Billy Lurk reflects on her life of betrayal and violence, realizing that Daud, her former mentor, was the only person who truly mattered to her. Searching for him, she discovers he is held captive by the Eyeless, a void-worshipping gang in Karnaca. Using a machine to suppress his powers, they force him into brutal fights for entertainment. Billy rescues Daud, who, though weakened, reveals his plan to kill the Outsider, whom he blames for much of the suffering across the Isles. To achieve this, they must retrieve the twin-bladed knife, the artifact used to create the Outsider. Billy is strangely confronted with the Outsider, who takes away one of her arms and her eye, replacing them with void-like replacements. Their search leads Billy to the Sisters of the Oracular Order, a division of the Abbey consisting of only women, who are trying to find a way to look into the future. They have locked the knife in a secure vault. Billy recovers the artifact, but when she returns to the dreadful whale, she finds the ship ablaze and Daud dead. His cause of death likely being him coming into contact with the artifact. Devastated but resolute, Billy takes up Daud's mission to eliminate the Outsider. Using powers granted by a long-dead god, she infiltrates the Eyeless sanctuaries and ventures into the void, where she discovers the Outsider, imprisoned within a stone pillar. In the climactic moment, Billy faces a choice: to kill the Outsider with a knife, erasing him from existence, or make Daud whisper his true name, freeing him from the void and allowing him to live as a mortal. No matter her decision, the Outsider's influence on the world ends. Billy steps into an uncertain future, burdened by the weight of her choices, but hopeful for a life free of the past. A year after the death of the Outsider, Billy Lurk wakes in Dunwall, haunted by nightmares and the silence of the void. With the twin-bladed knife unresponsive and void rifts appearing across the Isles, Billy seeks answers. She learns from a philosopher at the Academy of Natural Philosophy that the collapse of the void has caused fractures in reality, threatening to unravel the world. Directed to the devastated city of Alba, torn apart by a 3-day civil war, Billy embarks on a journey to investigate the expanding rifts and confront the emerging chaos. In Alba, Billy uncovers a sinister operation led by Everyman, who is harvesting void-rite, a substance linked to the void, to fuel experiments that distort gravity and reality. Captured and brought before Queen Evan and King Briam of Morley, Billy learns the royal couple has been corrupted by a void-born entity known as the Void Shadow, which seeks to reshape time and reality. With the guidance of a future version of herself, Billy discovers that the shadow is tied to the Queen and uses the knife and her eye of the dead god to track the entity's movements through the rifts. In a final confrontation at the Leviathan Causeway, Billy faces the Void Shadow as it consumes the Queen and King to become intangible. Realizing the creature's connection to void-rite, Billy rigs a flying machine with explosive void-rite and flies it into the shadow. Before she can sacrifice herself, Severin pushes her to safety, dying in the process. The explosion destroys the Void Shadow and stabilizes the rifts. Billy awakens to find herself escorted back to Dunwall, where Emily Caldwin thanks her for returning the twin-bladed knife. As Billy reflects on her journey, Martha Coffins reminds her of the mission left by her future self to traverse time and repair the fractures left by the void, setting the stage for Billy's continued fight to mend the void. In 1855, Billy travels back in time to change the events in 1852 and prevent the consequences of the Outsider's removal on the world. As we see in the events of Return of Daud, she is unsuccessful. So that concludes the timeline of Dishonored, a world shaped by cycles of power, betrayal and redemption, all under the shadow of the void. From the rise of heroes like Corvo, Emily and Billy to the fall of the Outsider, the Isles have endured endless transformation. Yet, even with the Outsider's departure, the void echoes persist, as the director of Deathloop has confirmed that a version of the timeline of Dishonored continues into Deathloop. If you are still watching, I want to thank you for joining me. This has been the longest video I have ever made and it was a lot of fun. If you want me to make a video diving deeper into the backstory of the characters of Dishonored or the timeline of Deathloop, be sure to let me know in the comments. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!